Welcome back to KTN Prime. It's now time for that conversation, which we had touted a little bit earlier on, where we'll be evaluating matters national security with my panelists right here in studio. And it's proper to paint a canvas of where exactly we are in terms of national security. Kenya was worried by the trend of assassinations just this year. We've seen two high-profile assassinations, most recently one that targeted a city lawyer, Chalo Mbobu, and not too long ago, Member of Parliament Charles Ongondo Were was equally taken out by a gunman's bullet. And that's not just the worrying issues when it comes to national security. We've seen a worrying trend when it comes to clamping down on cattle rustling within the Kerio Valley area, with various governments, including the previous one, making necessary steps in terms of trying to rid the country of the cattle rustling menace. Well, is disarmament working? That's one of the issues we'll be taking a look at, even as we evaluate the rise of criminal urban gangs in the country. So much to talk about, and we still haven't touched on extrajudicial killings and cases of femicide. So it's a broad conversation, and joining us in studio to help us put impetus to this particular matter of national concern is three gentlemen. Allow me to introduce my panelists. I'll start with Chris Otieno, who's a security analyst. Chris, great to have you with us. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
Thanks for honoring the invite. Equally joined by Dr. Joseph Mogashia, who's a co-convener of Concerned Citizens Movement of Kenya. He wears many caps, and right now he'll be talking about matter security. Karibu sana, Daktari. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for honoring the invite as well. Equally joined by a man who needs no introduction, Hussein Khalid, who's the CEO of Vocal Africa. In case you're wondering, Vocal Africa is the voices of community activists and leaders of Africa. Khalid, karibu sana.
Thank you, Jesse. Pleasure being here.
Thanks for your time. Well, gentlemen, I'd like us to begin with the very latest, and that has to do with the worrying trend of assassinations in the country. And just as I highlighted a little bit earlier on, we recently lost a city lawyer, city advocate Chalo Mbobu was gunned down just last week. And of course, the DCI is trying to get to the bottom of this particular case, including the previous cases of assassinations, as they try to establish the motive and the culprits and whatnot. So it's clear that some of these killings are a systematic targeting of individuals who are involved in sensitive matters within the legal, within the political and social discourse in this country. So, Chris, what do you make of this worrying trend of assassinations? Is this a symptom of an impunity crisis we are facing in the country, that some people might believe they're above the law?
To be able to speak clearly about the state of our national security, we need to look at the impacts of insecurity. And one of the impacts of insecurity is the loss, the right to life. We have seen two incidences, violent incidences, that have led to the loss of two lives. And the worrying thing is the frequency at which they have occurred and the severity of the two incidences. In terms of frequency, it's relatively too high, about a space of 1 or 2, 3 months there. And the next is severity, we've lost two lives in that. And if you go and look at what are our key security issues at the national level, you find violent crimes, terrorism, and transnational crimes. So if you look at these two items, which are key concerns for our nation, look at, is transnational crime taking root in Kenya because of access to small arms and proliferation of small arms? That's a question we need to ask ourselves and really answer that back. The next item, we also see the proliferation of gangs within the nation, right? So when you look at these trends and how they are occurring and the severity and the frequency, we're therefore telling ourselves that even though our national security is stable, there needs to be urgent review of some critical aspects that could take us back to that level where everybody has trust that our national security organs are working, and they're working very well, and the state of our security is stable, and one that we are not going to be worried about being cautious all the time, but to be cautious to a certain level. Okay. So yes, it is worrying.
It definitely is worrying. Daktari, add your voice to this. Perhaps what needs to be done to end this worrying rise of a trend in assassinations in the country? One life is too many, as they say.
Thank you very much, Jesse. when we look at the cases, that's the murders that have occurred in this country.
Yeah.
And I would like to say that it is not only what we are seeing now. If we go back historically, all the way from the time of Thomas Boyer, we have seen these cases of, those are the high-profile assassinations. But at the same time, and we haven't got any definitive solution to these cases. Mm-hmm. They all go cold. And you get a few people arrested, you get a few, you get a few people arrested, and then others are released on suspicious, in a suspicious manner. And we never really come down to say that this is a murder solved, and solved definitively. So what we have seen is accumulation of these cases over time. Now, what is very worrying now is that it is not only the high-profile murders. The murder of ordinary citizens is looking normal. And I hate the word ordinary citizens because everybody is ordinary. Everybody is a citizen. But those people who are not high-profile, if you look at the number of people that are being killed, you'll be shocked. We have seen all the young people who were killed in the protests last year. We have seen the killings this year. We have seen the disappearances. And we have not got any solution to that. We don't know who killed them. The president tells us he doesn't know. The IG of police tells us he doesn't know. Everybody says they don't know. Now, I would like to say that we have 10 senior security personnel in this country who are in charge of our security. That is the National Security Council. That organization, those 10 men and women have let this country down. And it is only getting worse. And I would like to go back to what President Uhuru, when he was president, what he told us. Your security begins with you. We as citizens must come forward and say that enough is enough. Mm-hmm. And those 10 men and women who have been entrusted with the security of this nation, management of our security, starting with the president, must be held to account. Thank you.
Okay, Khalid, as you come in, we have to talk about this menace of criminals on wheels, because the use of motorbikes in certain criminal activities is no coincidence. It's a choice of it's a tactical choice, quote unquote. And we've seen the government announce major reforms in the motorbike sector. They've called for licensing of boda groups. They've talked about regulating their activities. But still, if you ask the boda circles, they say these incidences are orchestrated by unregistered bodas. So there's still some work to do. Talk to us about the legitimate concerns in this subsector. How exactly do we clamp down on crime that is being orchestrated by the use of bodas? How do we streamline this sector?
I think, thank you, Jesse, for this opportunity. For me, I think the narrative of boda is one, reactionary.
Okay.
The police and in general the state is reacting to a situation instead of following up to understand the root cause of the problem. And then two, besides being reactionary, it's shifting blame. You want to point fingers somewhere. The responsibility of ensuring security lies squarely on the government. Actually, a government that cannot guarantee security to its people lacks the mandate to actually govern, So you want to immediately pass blame and say it's that one or it's this one when the responsibility belongs to the police. Mm-hmm. So what we are seeing, the high profile, the so-called, and I agree with the Dr. here, everyone is ordinary. But the high profile assassinations is a clear indication that people are now deciding to take the law into their own hands. I have a problem with Jesse, I don't like him, or it's a deal gone sour, he has my money or something like that. Instead of following the criminal justice system, instead of going to follow the law abide by what the rules of, a proper democracy are supposed to be, people are opting to use private means because they don't have faith in that system. And we see this also with ordinary citizens. If you look at the numbers of mob justice, I think in July alone, we had over 150 in 1 month, 150 mob justice lynchings in our country. So it is clear that people are losing faith in the security systems of the country. People are losing faith in our police service, who themselves are responsible for a high number of killings. In Sabasaba, on Sabasaba, the protest, this was the highest number of fatalities in the history of our country from a protest. Sabasaba, we saw 49 people dying on one single day, 49. It has never happened, So in every way you look at it, it's people now deciding, biashara hatujaelewana, me and Daktari here, and you decide you will do it your own way. And it's a very, very dangerous path to follow as a country, and we must rein in on insecurity now.
Okay, Chris, just reflect on what has been said. He hinted at the trend of cold cases when it comes to some of these assassinations. There's little semblance of accountability. Who did it? Why did they do it? You're just left with questions at the end of the charade in terms of arraigning suspects and releasing some of them. Some stay in police custody as investigations continue. But he equally points to an issue of lack of trust in the criminal justice system, hence a rise in mob justice and some of these instances where people take the law into their own hands. Reflect on that. How do we return trust to this criminal justice system that seems to be battered left, right, and center?
There needs to be done quite a number of things. And one of the key items that we need to look at a point glance is how do we articulate our national security as a nation? Number one, we have to ask ourselves very critical questions in terms of what is our national interest in terms of security? What is our national identity in security? What is our will? What are our values and what are our power in terms of the national level? Yeah. But then when you look at all these items, one key item comes out to be more or less like close to our identity, the menace of corruption. This corruption has very many spiral effects. And one spiral effect of this corruption is the elite will take advantage of the unemployed in very many ways, all right, to include also the ethnicities. And as long as there is that need to finance my well-being, and there is somebody who can offer that with the rampant landscape of threats in our national structures, the national economy, and all the factors of our nation, then you'll find that there'll be quite an easy availability of persons willing to engage themselves in these kinds of crime in the name of receiving a pay. So what do we do? A lot of things need to be done. We could exploit technological intervention in, for example, investigating the cold cases that my brother has mentioned here. In Kenya, we have the best forensic laboratory in East and Central Africa. Forensic investigations could be used pretty well to determine what were the actual causes or who were the perpetrators of these cold cases. And as long as we can bring that to the front, then we ensure that our justice system is quite empowered to ensure that we can drive these cases from investigations to successful prosecution. And that could be a deterrent. But not just that as the end. There are many other interventions that we can take to ensure that, yes, our country is gaining traction back to law and order and the lack of lawlessness. Look at our police force. Look at our security sector. A lot of reforms need to be done in the security sector. But we're telling ourselves, yes, they're being done. But the pace at which they are being done is too slow to be able to combat the problems that we are facing at national security level. So you cannot match the reform at the pace at which it's happening and the crimes that are happening out there. Because of that mismatchment and misalignment, basically everybody feels now we are in a state of panic. But in actual sense, our national security is stable. But these are sporadic occurrences that raise a lot of questions in terms of which are the high-risk areas. These have happened in Nairobi. They've not happened in other parts of the country. So what are we telling ourselves? We need to relook at Nairobi. We need to look at these high-risk areas and really have critical interventions to look at them. The biggest failure in our country is security leadership. The biggest failure in our country is security leadership. If you look, for example, in countries like United States of America and Israel, for you to lead that security docket, you must have a background in that field. But what are we having in Kenya? You can answer that for yourselves.
Definitely. Dr. Ari, as you come in, this matter to do with the public's perception with the police, it's very crucial for effective service delivery. And how exactly can we reform this police service from the National Police Service as it's seen to build public confidence and transform it to a force, or from a force feared by citizens to a service trusted by the people?
Well, you change the name again.
Yeah,
okay, let's be serious now.
Yeah.
You know, in this country, we have this habit of changing the names of institutions, and believing that the institutions are going to work. I mean, Kenyans, let's be serious. Institutions don't have a life of their own. It is the people who run the institutions that make the institutions be what they are, if they use the framework that is given for running that institution. And in this country, we are a democracy. So we have a constitution. And this constitution of Kenya, which we call Constitution of Kenya 2010, but since it was promulgated, then it is the Constitution of Kenya. At Concerned Citizens Movement, we have read the Constitution many, many times, and we have looked at it. Our Constitution actually provides for what we need to make this country a truly democratic country, and also a country which is led or governed according to the rule of law. So we have addressed three things, or we have isolated three things. Forget about the police, forget about the healthcare, forget about transport. At the end of the day, at the apex, is the rule of law, which has been left neglected very, very deliberately. When a president comes up and says, shoot people on the leg, where does that leave the police that we are talking about? Where does that leave anybody else who is in charge of security? So we are not obeying the law right from the top. So the first thing we need to do in our assessment as Concerned Citizens Movement is to restore this country back to the rule of law, where everybody follows the Constitution, follows the laws of Kenya, and at the implementation level, follows government policy. Now, when we come to the police, I find it very, very low, and both unconstitutional and unlawful for any police officer like the IG of police or any other police officer to tell us that they are obeying laws from above. Chris is in security, he will tell us there are laws from above. But then the Constitution tells us laws from above are unlawful if they are illegal. They are illegal if they are unlawful. That is, if I am the president and I tell the police, shoot people on the leg, I'm breaking the law. And that law is unlawful and therefore illegal. It should not be obeyed. It should not be implemented. So we need to go back to the rule of law. We have to restore the country back to governance by rule of law. And the people that we need there, before we even go to the judiciary, we need the citizens first to understand what does the Constitution say about the rule of law. Everybody is subordinate to the Constitution. And therefore, anybody who is not governing according to the Constitution at whatever level should be removed from office, including the president. Now, that takes us to the next level. We know the Gen Z said they wanted to remove the president. But we keep telling them, what you are doing is illegal. You cannot bring legality by committing illegality. You have to follow the law. You have to follow the Constitution. So who is allowed by law to remove the president? Save for sickness and death and all that, it is the members of parliament, the MPs and the senators. Those people have let us down because they are the ones who are supposed to ensure that the rule of law is followed when it is broken by the executive. And then finally, now the citizens can compel members of parliament to enforce the rule of law by impeaching the president, for instance, impeaching the deputy president, for instance, impeaching even the IG of police, or even a minister, that is a CS. They are allowed by the Constitution. They are given the power by the Constitution, which is power given by the people. Why are they going to the street and getting our children and our people killed by the police, making noise, while they are supposed to go to parliament and remove the offending officer? That is what they are supposed to do. Then finally, you go to the judiciary. And the judiciary in Kenya, as it is today, out of the three arms of government, according to our assessment, they are the only ones who are trying some independence. Parliament is completely captured by the executive. The judiciary should also check parliament and check the executive. They should enforce the law by ensuring that whoever breaks the law and is taken to the courts, they are actually dealt with according to the law. But we see cases dragging for eternity. We also see some judgments being made which are actually not according to the law.
Yeah.
So, to answer the question straight, we need the citizens to exercise our sovereign power by compelling the members of parliament to check on the executive, including impeaching the president. And they have the power to do that.
Okay. And just drawing back to matters national security, do you believe the NPS is independent, or that's simply on paper? They get orders from above, as you've mentioned.
You know, the Constitution establishes the NPS as an independent entity within the government.
Yeah.
Now, the independence should not be mistaken to mean that they can do whatever they want, because they actually are under the presidency. They are in the office of the president.
But where does
now,
independence start and interdependence finish?
Now, the independence relates to the operations.
Oh, okay.
But it is not policy, they are not independent. It is made by the Ministry of Interior.
Yeah.
And then you go higher up, you have the National Security Council with the 10 men and women I talked about, headed by the president. They are the ones who deal with issues of policy and oversight. So at the end of the day, we know that independence relates to the operations, but not in totality, because they are under the presidency.
Interesting. Khalid, as you give us your take on that, I have to ask you about these criminal gangs that seem to be infiltrating various urban centers. And I'll pin it on an April 2025 National Crime Research Center report that gave sober revelations. The number of organized criminal groups have ballooned from 33 in 2010 to 326 by 2017. Yes. That's an over 800% increase, you know, in just 7 years. And we've seen over 300 such gangs are reportedly active in only 11 counties, with Mombasa, Nairobi, and Kilifi topping this list. So these groups are subservient to political interference, you know, criminal enterprises and all that. The state's response has largely been reactive in terms of crackdowns, in terms of raids and whatnot. What's the best deterrent in terms of solving this issue once and for all, from where you sit?
Yeah, so to look at what needs to be done, or what's the best deterrent, you have to first of all find out what encourages the mushrooming of these criminal groups in different parts of the country.
True.
As it stands presently, we are in dire situation. Everywhere, every day you look at the news, you switch on the KTN news at 9 o'clock, there is always some news somewhere of some criminal gang having attacked someone, having killed someone. In Mombasa, which according to the National Crime Research Center, it's the county with the highest number of criminal gangs. By, when 6 o'clock, 6:30, people are rushing to their homes. They can be outside. In parts of Nairobi today, even in the CBD, I think just 2-3 weeks ago, people were demonstrating. This is a city, this is the capital city of Kenya. And people are feeling, scared of being out in the CBD. We're not even talking of estates. We're talking about the CBD. So there are a number of reasons that, we find ourselves in this situation. Number one, and I think this has been said by a number of individuals, those goons that we were seeing, being used to infiltrate protests, those that we're seeing attacking people in press conferences, when they're doing their events, where are they now? After you mobilize them, after you empower them, you give them the resources to attack others, once they are done with what you sent them to do, remember, they are already there. They're existing. What else do they do? You go, you attack someone, is arriving from the US or something like that, and then what happens to that group after that event? They go back, they talk, they discuss, they need to continue surviving. They need to exist so that next time they're needed, they're already there. Yeah. So politicians who are behind these gangs, we need to ask ourselves, what are we going to do? Because it's politicians who are mobilizing these gangs, My brother Chris spoke of small arms, infiltration. Today, it's not that hard. I think we have a journalist who is in exile right now, after exposing how criminal gangs actually hire weapons from police officers. This is how people are accessing some of these weapons that are used in communities. We were receiving phone calls the other day from people in Mathare that there's one of them who has a gun and he's just, moving around the estate with no worries. And everyone knows that they have this weapon. So we have to look at how did we find ourselves in this situation? Where are the police officers? Just to take a very simple case of Shakahola. Over 400 people died. Over 400. Where were the security agencies? As if that was not bad enough, we are seeing a repeat of the same in just a year or two. And you have the cabinet secretary himself, on national television saying, this individual, he's communicating to his followers. And you're the cabinet secretary. We thought we were safe from this guy. He's under your custody. Yeah. And you're coming on national television to tell us that even when government has him, you're allowing him the phone, you're allowing him access to his followers, he's continuing to preach, and more people are now dead. So I agree that we have a huge failure in terms of security in this country. And these are things that we need to ask ourselves. Politicians, what is their role? They are the ones who are funding some of these criminal gangs, and once they fund them, they think that is it. But these people are there. You have to ask ourselves, these security agencies, police, what is their role? Because your work is not to sit just at the police station and wait for crime to happen and then you act. You are supposed to deter, you're supposed to stop that crime from happening in the first place. You're supposed to investigate. That's why we have DCI, that's why we have NIS, that's why we have all these groups, so that you are investigating. You don't just react. Security is a whole framework. You have to know where you begin from. How do you start even uprooting some of these gangs? And they are known. They are known. We have CCTV cameras. We have faces that have been captured very openly. Not a single one of them, has been, arrested or action taken against them. So we have a government that is so relaxed. They feel that, as long as this is not happening to us that it is okay. But sooner or later, it will catch up with you. Security affects all of us. Today you have this gang attacking your enemy. Remember, that gang is still there. And tomorrow it will be used to attack you. So this is the problem that we have, and this is the way we can deal with it, by dealing the financiers, the backers of these criminal gangs. And they are known.
Okay. Chris?
I love this argument, but there's some point probably we don't want to miss here. Security is interconnected in nature. One item here will affect another item there. If we fail in our border security, if we fail in our border control, what are we telling ourselves? We will see the kind of persons getting into our country being something else. If you look at foreign embassies and how they issue out their security alerts, what do they focus on? Political instability, all right? Health issues, natural disaster, things like that. But the key aspect is political instability. And my friend has said it quite well. If we look at the state of Haiti, what happened in Haiti many years ago? A political figure built a gang to defend his political power. Thereafter, sustainability became quite impossible. And the gangs, because of lack of sustainability, they went up to take control over the streets. Now, the next item that we need to look at is the number of policemen that we have in this country compared to the number of citizens. UN structure tells us that we need to have 1 policeman to 400 citizens in any nation. But what do we have in Kenya? 1 police officer for 1,200 Kenyans. That is service that cannot be rendered in whatever way you look at it. It will not be rendered at all. The end result is the public perception of security. After everything that happened in the background, what comes to the public is the end result. But what these security apparatus do at the back end of any office is tremendous. They save so many lives. They deter so many things from happening. But what happens in the front is a few things that have gotten out of their control, and that now creates a very bad public perception that these guys are not working. But in actual sense, they are delivering. But we are telling ourselves, because we want very high standards, our security apparatus need to adjust themselves to the standards that citizens of Kenya expect them to adjust themselves for them to meet what we would think as Kenyans as the right perception in terms of national security. And that is way, way ahead of us. And unless we rectify some certain structures in our national fabric, then that will remain in that level of perception that we are doing very poorly in terms of national security.
Okay, you've hinted at porous borders, and we just want to hear from the Cabinet Secretary of Interior, Murkomen, who gave his take on the proliferation of guns into Kenya, illegal firearms, and how they end up in the arms of cattle rustlers and criminal groups, and they're used to conduct crime. Let's just listen in.
Some parts of this county are facing serious challenges of cattle theft or livestock theft. That also involves proliferation of small arms. Guns are being used in this county, and the security team have been tracking persons who have been procuring ammunitions and guns from as far as parts of West Pokot County all the way to a border with Uganda, and bringing them to this county, and then from Tanzania to bring also to this country, and fueling conflict between communities. And I must say that I'm glad that the security team are on this issue. I've given them another 1 month to make sure that they arrest all these people, and I'm extending an olive branch to all people who are holding illegal firearms to surrender to the National Police Service immediately, and in a very amicable and peaceful manner, take it to the next police station or next OCS, next security person, before we come for it. Because I have said that when we come for a firearm, when the security team comes for a firearm, it may be very painful and might be too late.
Okay. So the CS just admitting that, you know, there's some arms that make their way into the country, and it's quite unfortunate they end up in the hands of criminals and cattle rustlers, quote unquote. First of all, this embargo where criminals are asked to return their arms, is it, how do I put it, sustaining, self-sufficient? Is this a proper way to combat the menace of cattle rustling? Because this is not the only administration that has calmly asked or given a time frame, you can return your arms peacefully, and then thereafter we'll be clamping down on you in a force to reckon with. What's the logic behind returning arms?
I want to say something quite affirmatively.
Yeah.
That since I was a child, cattle rustling has been there in this country of ours. If you go to the root cause, look at where we are located in Eastern Africa, as Kenya. We have a warring neighbor, we have a failed state as a neighbor, and we have neighbors who are not agreeing on how they want the leadership to go. At the same time, we are finding ourselves not being quite stringent at our borders. There is a nation who's our neighbor here. You can either say they are Kenyan neighbors, they are neighbors Kenyan. You really can't define where these guys are unless we take strict control of our borders. Then I will guarantee you for sure that as long as the next generation is going to come, this problem is going to stick there with us. Another thing, our youths are going through a very high pressure in terms of social expression in this country. How are we expressing ourselves? They are seeing all these levels of violence. They are seeing all these losses of life. And we are telling ourselves that the future security of this nation will be shaped by what these gentlemen and young ladies are seeing. So we can tell ourselves right where we are seated, probably we are going to be much better in terms of security where we are. But as years go by and these guys become older, maybe the next level of violence will be not what we are seeing here. It will be extreme violence. And we are saying the same thing. As long as we do not work on our borders right, we'll continue having this menace of small arms proliferation. We'll give amnesties, asking citizens, if you have a legal firearm, return it, right? And if you don't return, we'll crack down. We'll continue to say that because we are not looking at the interconnectedness of this security, and we're not singling them out and handling each of them separately. And then in the long run, at the output, we handle all of them collectively. We are not doing that. We're just looking at the end results, but not looking at the root cause analysis of these problems that we have.
Okay, Dr. As you come in, how do we prevent illegal arms falling into the wrong hands from where you sit? Be it cattle rustlers, be it these criminal gangs that I imagine prevention is better than cure, as they say.
Okay, I want to first go back to, I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the issue of the so-called goons. We really don't have goons. These are people who are organized by majorly politicians. I'm going to say here, I'm a politician, and I know what happens. You go and you see there are even some small companies which people have made which provide the so-called goons. When they are polished, they will come in suits and all that. But they are told very clearly, you hate somebody, make sure you hate them so hard they will not come to another rally. So, even as we are looking at our borders, I agree with you, Chris, but even as we are looking at our borders, kikulacho, kinguoni mwako, what is messing us up is within us. It is our leaders, our politicians. And if you look at the political meetings, you will always see that a politician will come accompanied by some hooligans, people who are shouting and threatening everybody else. You know, when you look at the Constitution, I don't remember whether it is Article 27 or somewhere around there, it says very clearly that people, Kenyans, have a right not to be intimidated or harassed by anybody, whether public or private. So why are we having politicians running some sort of militias and loading it over other Kenyans, and we accept it? They move from knives. First of all, they move from punches. They go to knives and rungus, that's the clubs. Then they move from there, and now they go to the small arms. They go to the weapons, to the firearms. And this is happening in a country where, I will go back again and say there are 10 high caliber ladies and gentlemen who are called the security managers of this country, the National Security Council. Those 10 individuals headed by the president must be able to account to us, the citizens, why they are not able to manage our security. And that is because these politicians, they need them to harass people to give them votes. And therefore, it is an ecosystem of the leaders to keep insecurity in order to get votes. Let's call it as it is. We go out there, and you will even know, so-and-so will come with so many goons. So-and-so will come with so many goons. Their assignment will be this.
Okay.
You report to the police, and the police will tell you to Meskia. We have heard. But you go, you'll find some people, some of your people, if you are the one who is peaceful, your people will be having black eyes. And then you have nobody to follow. So we must decide whether we want chaos in this country or we want to go back to the rule of law. And we really appeal to Kenyans.
Okay.
Let us go back to the rule of law. Any leader who is not doing that does not deserve to be our leader. Now, the issue of porous borders and small arms.
Yeah.
That I agree with Chris. It is a situation we find ourselves in. And that falls down within another level of security, which is supposed to be combined between all the agencies. Not the police alone, not the NIS alone, not the DCI alone, not the military. All of them are supposed to work in a very coordinated manner,
Okay.
where they are able even to know what is happening across the borders and who is likely to infiltrate those weapons into our country. But you see, the weapons will not find a place, a market, if we have also taken care of our internal security. And one of the other motivators of the small arms influx is the economy. Because the people who are getting these weapons, there are people who say, I have nothing to lose. And there is nothing worse than when you have a large population of people who claim they have nothing to lose, because they will do anything. I've worked in other countries, and we have seen this. When you allow the economy to go so low, then you have people willing to get assets, or mainly money, through illegal means. And they will very readily buy the guns.
Okay. Okay.
And then, of course,
Yeah.
finally, you mentioned it, the question of corruption. How do those guns get into the country? You find there are security agents who are also bribed. There are other people who are bribed. There are gun runners.
Okay.
So we need to look at our security in totality, and those 10 gentlemen and ladies, we must get them to work.
Simple as that.
Thank
Okay.
you.
You're focusing on the 10 gentlemen and lady. That's proper. The buck stops right there. Anyway, Khalid, as you come in, I'd like your take on the anti-terrorism efforts we're making as a country. Because we've seen a couple of military operations, strategic interventions. What's your take on how we can win the hearts and minds of communities to prevent radicalization and recruitment at the onset?
Let me answer your question, Jesse, by picking up from where Dr. left. Corruption. When dealing with terrorism in Kenya, corruption is a major impediment through the porous borders. You find that, we have a system that allows, for individuals with very ulterior motive to just cross over, and come in, and, getting IDs nowadays, it's so easy. You just bribe, and then these people are able to get national identity cards, and within no time, they're all over the place. And they can access not just, our economic infrastructure, but they socially are part of us, and everything happens. So, number one, we need to ensure we tighten our borders. Make sure that, we can tell who is coming in, and when they get in, then where are they moving around? Of course, the world has become, as they say, a global village. You cannot, just restrict movement. Some of these communities survive through cross-border businesses and all that. But you need to have proper measures in place to safeguard the interests of the nation. Number two, when dealing with counterterrorism, you also need to address the pull and push factors within the country. We have many, many issues of discrimination. where people feel that they are treated as second-class citizens. So even if we are able to guard our borders, how are we dealing with communities within our country? Do people feel that they all belong to this nation, or are other communities treated differently from others? This shareholder business, how are we dealing with it?
Okay.
As a nation, as a country, when you're dealing with corruption and you're inviting certain communities, certain individuals to State House, and you're saying, we will give you this, we will give you that, we are promoting, that iniquity in our community. So I believe that terrorism, we have tried to a certain extent. I have dealt with violent extremism at the coast for many, many years. I believe that we have, passed that worst period. There was a time when, people were moving in hundreds to go and join Al-Shabaab and all that.
Yeah.
But through, civil society, the National Counterterrorism Center and others, we've been able to limit that. So that, such that, even these shootings on motorbikes, we began seeing them at the coast originally, where people were just being shot left, right, and center, because either you are against so-and-so or you're against this and that person. So to a large extent, we've been able to rein in on violent extremism. We've tried to reduce radicalization, and it has worked because people have listened, people have come out, and we've tried to promote development. We've tried to promote economic opportunities, particularly for the youth.
Okay.
And they're now, very much engaged. But we are not there yet. And it is a very slippery slope. If we just, make the slightest mistake, we could easily go back to where we were. So I believe that when dealing with counterterrorism, we need to be very careful. This issue of just giving out IDs to any person because you want votes, we need to rethink. I believe every Kenyan has a right to a national ID, but how do we make sure that these are Kenyans who are getting these IDs, so that people don't take advantage of that, and then go out to just pick documents, Kenya documents, and use them against us.
Interesting, yeah.
I think we have all seen the CS Murkomen going around the country holding several security meetings.
Yes.
And when you hear the police officers speak there, you'll listen to the frustrations that they're experiencing in the operational arena. So basically, we're telling ourselves that one of our weakest points is weak security apparatus that we have in this country. And that could be driven by so many things. Number one, there's a lot of inequality in terms of resource allocation across our nation. Other areas are quite marginalized. You hear somebody saying, I'm coming from this county going to Kenya. I mean, that is an expression that tells you that some of our people, we still have not gotten to that space where everybody knows that they are part and parcel of this Republic of Kenya. The government did very well when we repealed a number of sections in our constitution and allowed county governments to come in. That is a proper breakdown of reducing marginalization. But the next thing that worsens that is the bad governance that we have seen in this county government. And the elements that my brothers have spoken about, corruption, the number of deals that are being rendered, the number of families that are being brought there belonging to a particular leader of that particular government to drive business, people really are getting the intercoordinators of security, some are really getting frustrated, and how they express themselves out of what is happening around them also gives a very bad perception with reference to our security. Let's break down what has happened in the country.
Yeah, briefly.
There has not been an attack from another nation on Kenya. That has not happened there. There was a mention of Jubaland being in here in Kenya, but never really came here or there. So basically telling ourselves that one of our operators, KDF, is doing very well. Now, where do we need to put our resources is the policemen, the police force. That's why we need to put a lot of resources to make sure the police are able to maintain law and order within the borders of Kenya. Okay. Because other operators are working well.
Well, we are strapped of time, but as we finalize, Daktari, the government has put various policies in place and initiatives to address security challenges, from Nyumba Kumi community to more recent national peace building and prevention strategies. What do you make of these initiatives? Have they been effectively implemented? Is it a step in the right direction? Will this help in terms of having a better outlook in terms of national security? Briefly.
Thank you very much. I would like to say that one very effective measure is Nyumba Kumi.
Okay.
And I want to give you just a live example. I traced somebody somewhere in the heart of Narok, and I used the Nyumba Kumi system. And I was able to trace the person, the family, everything, down to the house.
Okay.
Now, I've also seen Nyumba Kumi work in Iraq, where I worked before, where you are able even to say who came to that locality yesterday, how long are they staying there, and where are they coming from, and what is the business.
Okay.
So Nyumba Kumi initiative is something that should actually be grown into a standard security operating procedure in this country. It has helped a lot, and it will help a lot.
Okay.
The other things is that things like changing the police, the name of the police, it doesn't help us. And even firing one guy and bringing another one, it doesn't help.
Okay.
We need to concentrate on quality security operations, which follow the rule of law. Thank you.
Khalid, final take.
Yeah, utumishi kwa wote, not utu missing kwa wote. This is the rallying call. Today is the International Day for Democracy. I was in a conference in the morning, and many were lamenting about the security apparatus in the country. And I think, for me, I think this is the time Kenyans need to speak out loudly to be heard. There's no better time than now. I think the Gen Zs have opened up the space for everyone and anyone to share in. So let's give back, let's talk, let's, where you feel there is a problem, let's come out. This is the only way we will change our country and move it forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris, final take.
We need to delink security from political leadership. I don't know how we'll find that formula. There's a global problem.
Yeah.
We need to work on public-private sector partnerships to solve security issues. We need to leverage on technologies quite available right now in the world, particularly 21st century, a lot of disruptive technologies. Create synergy among security agencies in Kenya. Go out and sign partnerships locally and internationally to make sure that we have solutions. And finally, we need to correct that public perception of security apparatus in this country performing poorly.
Well, it's work in progress. That's how they say it, finally.
There's something that we need to put in perspective.
Okay.
That the Constitution puts security under civilian oversight. So the management of security, top management, is civilian. And the Constitution is very clear that security is subordinate to civilian management. But what we need to do, Chris, I hear you, but we need to go back to the rule of law. That even somebody like the CS for Interior needs to really understand what that statement in the Constitution means. It does not mean you lord it over. I would like to see a time when the IG of police tells the CS, sorry, what you are giving me is unlawful order. It is not implementable. It will not be implemented. And that should go even up to the president.
Okay.
And other countries like the US, they do that. Thank you.
Interesting. That's how we finalize today's conversation. Thank you so much for watching. Chris Otieno is a security analyst. Dr. Joseph Mugashia is a co-convener of the Concerned Citizens Movement of Kenya. And Hussein Khalid is the CEO of Vocal Africa, just giving their take on interventions from a community base in terms of what needs to be done in order to make the national security discourse a little bit better. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Jesse Rogers. On behalf of the entire team, including Ashley Mazuri and our sign language interpreter, Preeti Janet, we say thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Good evening.